The NFL draft may be over with for the Chicago Bears, but the roster building is not done. While the Chicago Bears had a solid draft by most pros, grades, the Chicago Bears still have a hole on their defensive line. On today's episode, we're talking about a few defensive linemen free agents that can actually help the Chicago Bears as soon as this season. We're also talking about which veterans now have more pressure put upon them based off the Chicago Bears draft. We're talking about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Derek Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. Before we start talking about, defensive line free agents and stuff that's out there for the Chicago Bears, I want to talk about Ryan Poles' comments in regards to the goal and the game plan for having Coby Bryant and Dillon Thieneman here at the Chicago Bears safety position. Many people will know Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker were the backbone of the Chicago Bears defense. They just were. They were such an important part of the flexibility that the Chicago Bears defense had, with one being inside the box, outside the box, the versatility that they have there. And you are shaping up to have a lot of that with Coby Bryant and Dillon as well coming to this team. But Ryan Poles spoke a little bit about it, where he said this: "You think you match up better. You eliminate every time, especially our pro staff. We do an advance on our opponent. We're looking for targets. We're looking for guys that can find mismatches and expose. So when you have speed, you have a lot of guys that can cover in different spots. Your ability to hang in there, cover longer while you're bringing pressure, things like that enhances the entire defense." So it's seeming like because the Bears did not get the pass rusher that many people were expecting, is that they're looking at having better and more versatile coverage, allowing it to free up the defensive lineman more, because it's going to take longer, for a quarterback to find their target. Thus, you have more time as a defensive line. Ideally, you want the pass rush and the pass coverage to be in synergy, right? Meaning that because a combination of your ability to get and put pressure on quarterbacks and your ability to cover, it presents mismatches there for you schematically that you can take advantage of. That is the goal of just about every, defense out there, right? Now, the question becomes about, can the Chicago Bears execute that the way that they want to? And I think it is. They're in a great position to be able to do that. What Thieneman brings to this team is something that is a dynamic that they had with like a Kevin Byard. He's a guy that can get interceptions. He's a guy that can go inside the box, outside the box. One of the more versatile coverage guys that we have here. You pairing with that, Coby Bryant. Also, Malik Muhammad you got in there, who's been shutting guys down in college. You have, hopefully a healthy Kyler Gordon, Zay Frazier, and the confidence that Zay Frazier has. While the Bears did not upgrade the pass rush yet to the level that many Bears fans were hoping that they were going to upgrade it to this offseason, the Bears have now created more of a scheme and more versatility in their defensive backfield, which can do that. When you pair that with the speed that they're going to be bringing from the linebacker position as well, with Devin Bush and, having TJ Edwards there, we'll see what other guys are able to bring as well. The Bears defense could take several steps forward. The question really becomes about still with the Bears is, can they do enough in the pass rush that we've seen playoff teams have? But we'll get into that. But Dillon brings so much of exactly what Dennis Allen wants to do with his backs. Every defensive play caller has their thing, right? You look back at Matt Eberflus, even though we never were able to execute it because Matt Eberflus just isn't a good coach. His was bringing pressure from the interior. His system was more built around bringing pressure from the interior of the defensive line than what it necessarily was edgewise, right? We never really got to see that in that area, but also coverage linebackers were a part of that. When you look at Dennis Allen, the thing that makes his scheme so special is the number of defensive backs that he has out there. One of the creative things that he likes to do is leave that third linebacker spot open to where you can have a defensive back in there, which means you can pass, you can drop into coverage. There are going to be sometimes he drops an edge back to that third linebacker position. There's going to be sometimes, where there are other creative things where there is a speed linebacker like a Ruben Hippolyte there as well. So that's really what Dennis Allen's scheme is built upon. It's built upon the versatility and that third linebacker spot and the defensive backs. Having versatility in those spots is so important to Dennis Allen's system really getting and humming. So now that you have Coby Bryant, now that you have Dillon Thieneman in here, right? You're going to have a healthy Kyler Gordon, a healthy Jalen Johnson. Hopefully Malik Muhammad passes up Tyreek Stevenson, right? Like you have those type of things in there. You're going to see a much more, executable version of the Dennis Allen scheme and the play there. And so with Thieneman being a day one starter, right? And now you have your guys in the secondary. Like this secondary could be exactly what we thought it was going to be going into next year. I mean, into last season. A lot of people thought and looked at, myself included, that the Bears' defensive backs was where the thing was going to be special with this team. But unfortunately, we had injuries to Kyler early, injuries to Jalen Johnson early. I don't know if those guys were ever truly healthy over the course of last season. I just don't know that. Tyreek Stevenson was thrust into, being the CB1, a role that he's not ready for. He clearly showed that last year. That's not him. He's not that guy. He's not that guy. So you have that part of it, and that's just the reality of it. So now that you are seeing a more of that, and it better work because you didn't go out and get the edge. You passed up some edges that you could have had, especially in round 3 where the Bears love to draft tight ends. You passed up on some guys there. So now you better execute. On top of Austin Booker, you're betting on him. You're betting on Javon Dexter to take another step. You're betting on those guys to take another step progressively to this team. That's what we talked about Ben Johnson's words on yesterday's episode with him talking about how, as a coaching standpoint, they're going to do a better job coaching these guys up and a better job scheming them. So you better get it to make that happen. You better get it to make that happen. And overall, we'll see, right? Like I trust this coaching staff, and I have the ultimate belief in this coaching staff based off what they showed us last year in the way that they just set a standard that we have not had here in Chicago for far too long. So now it becomes about how much can you execute and take that a bit further. We'll talk about the offense as the season goes on because there's a lot of pressure on that offense to take another step forward as well, and we cannot overlook the need for the offense to be much better than what it was last season. But, just hearing that vote of confidence from that, I think, the Bears got themselves a top 10, 15 talent in Dillon being able to be there at number 25 for this team. And for that, Ryan Poles read the draft board really well. But with that said, what are you doing with these other spots? How are you going to make this defense take another step? Because I tell you what, the Bears defense ranked at the bottom of the league in so many categories last year. You look at what we were able to do offensively, and even that being so much of that being, the cardiac Bears coming back and needing the Iceman in the fourth quarter. If we keep the philosophies of what we did well last year, can make that better on the offensive side of the ball, while the defense is more consistent for a full 4 quarters, hey, the sky's the limit for the Chicago Bears team. I get it where a lot of Bears fans have, the problem with this draft. I understand that. I talked about that on yesterday's episode. There is a legitimate reason why Bears fans have, the feeling that they do on this NFL draft. Can't take that away from you guys. But I think that, it's up to the coaching staff, it's up to the players to take a step, it's up to these type of things for us to really take that next step. And I think this Bears team can do it. I think that they can do it. We just got to see. But overall, the Bears have complete matchup flexibility right now. And I think we are going to see some very crazy, for my X's and O's people. Like I told you guys, I was a running back playing football, but I am a defensive guy. I love defensive schemes. I love defensive concepts. I go back when I watch the All-22, I'm watching more defensive stuff than anything else. And so for people who like to see the creativity on the defense and they go back and look at those plays and look at how the Bears mix up their coverages and all that type of stuff, I think health barring, right, that you're going to see one of the most creative seasons for the Bears defensively. And what that means for us going forward, I guess we'll see. But I think there's a lot to be really excited about. But with every draft, every single draft, you start putting veterans on notice, right? But you start putting guys that the contracts are coming up. You could have drafted their replacement. You could have done some of those things. And I think there are some key signs to some veterans that are going to potentially, see what the future does hold for them. The first one is Tyreek Stevenson. Tyreek Stevenson has been a guy that I've defended. I look at the analytics with Tyreek. He's not been nearly as bad as what some Bears fans make him out to be. But even with that said, me saying that he hasn't been as bad as what some people make him out to be, he hasn't been good enough for him to have to be locked in for the Chicago Bears and the Bears just to say they're going to pay him no matter what. And I think with Malik Muhammad, specifically bringing him over and his potential to be a shutdown corner in this league, it does put some more pressure on a player like Tyreek Stevenson. I personally think Jalen Johnson's fine and safe. I don't think the Bears are going to move on from Jalen Johnson anytime. It feels like Bears fans are ready to turn on Jalen Johnson every drop of the hat that they can, and that's really been since we started the show 5 years ago. It's just Bears fans just, are ready to turn on Jalen. Jalen was hurt last year, but I think that Malik Muhammad, and maybe he does put some pressure on Jalen Johnson. We don't know, right? Like maybe the Bears do look at it and say, hey, maybe Malik can be a number one. But I think overall is that Tyreek Stevenson, who's been the cornerback 2 and shared that duties with Terrell Smith, both those guys are now put on notice by Malik Muhammad. Malik Muhammad has the stats don't jump out the stat sheet from you on him because he's been shutting wide receivers down in college the whole entire time, right? Now, there are some things that he needs to work on, and I do think Dennis Allen and the positional coaches are going to really help him, but Malik Muhammad has so much. He's one of those guys that I look at and I say, hey, keep an eye out on this guy. Now, I don't know how much that's going to happen in year one. I think he can come in and make an impact in year one. I think what he does in the rookie mini camps, what he does in preseason, what he does in training camp is really going to dictate that. But Tyreek Stevenson, who has had as many downs as ups in the Chicago Bears uniform, if this is another season of inconsistency from Tyreek Stevenson, that's probably going to be a wrap for him with his Chicago Bears career because Malik Muhammad is coming for that spot. Whether it's this year, whether it's next year, he doesn't have to take it this year, but if he shows enough building off of that this season, the Bears could very well feel comfortable thrusting him into that position of being the cornerback 2 next season. So Tyreek Stevenson, if he's going to want a long-term contract and re-up here with the Chicago Bears, this is your time. This is your opportunity to really make your move. And if you do that, we'll see what happens for you. So I think overall, you have to look at that. And then, of course, Sam Roush with Cole Kmet. And it just comes down to, do I think that Sam Roush is as good of a player as Cole Kmet? No, I don't think he is. Could he be, though? Possibly. Right? I think when you look at him being the best blocking tight end, still being a threat in the passing game as well, yes, he's the best blocking tight end in the draft. But I disagree with people trying to pigeonhole him into just being a blocking tight end. You see the numbers that he did in college. This is a guy that is a threat in the receiving and passing game. Now, with Colston Loveland being there, he doesn't have to be as big of a threat as what Cole Kmet has done for his career. I love Cole Kmet, and I wouldn't mind Cole Kmet signing a long-term contract with the Chicago Bears. You guys know I've been a Cole Kmet supporter here the whole entire time. But the fact of the matter is the Bears are going to probably have to go into next offseason making some big swings. The contract of Cole Kmet is the thing that really kind of dictates all of that, and there's going to be some interest around him if the Bears do make him available. So, I think that they've put the writing on the wall in regards to that. It's just up to what happens. Again, Sam Roush's last year in Stanford, 49 receptions, 545 yards, 11 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, 11 yards per reception, 2 touchdowns. Again, not the numbers that we've seen from Cole Kmet, but when you have Colston Loveland there, you don't necessarily need the historic numbers that we've seen from Cole Kmet over his career. So I think that leads itself to Sam Roush definitely having an opportunity to put some pressure on Cole Kmet. Now, it could be that Cole Kmet has a great season this year, another year of kind of chemistry with Caleb Williams and with Colston Loveland, and we don't even talk about it. But, we'll see what's going to happen there. And then another player that I do think is going to put some pressure, and that is Keyshaun Elliott. I think that Keyshaun Elliott in that linebacking core is going to put some pressure in the future on the Bears linebackers. Now, I know we talked about an article earlier in the offseason that talked about TJ Edwards, and the Bears could possibly move on from TJ Edwards because of the contract, because of money, other places. They didn't draft somebody that I personally look at and say, this is a clear guy that's going to take this spot from TJ Edwards. But I do think Keyshaun Elliott is a guy that the Bears drafted where they drafted him because they believe in him. And he's going to have an opportunity with Noah Sewell being injured to start this season. Ruben Hippolyte, we don't exactly know what Ruben Hippolyte's going to be, for this team. You look at Keyshaun Elliott at 6'2", 235 pounds. Yeah, he was drafted in the 5th round, but hey, we got a guy named Jack Sanborn on this team that, wasn't even drafted, right? And so the Bears have luck with linebackers. That's just, if you talk about the Bears having luck anywhere, linebacker is a position where the Bears do have some luck at. And Keyshaun Elliott, in watching the tape and seeing what stands out about him, this is definitely a guy that I can see coming in and eventually getting a starting role. I could see that happening. We're going to see what's going to happen. Over his 4 years in college, 301 tackles, 11 and a half sacks. Over that as well as a linebacker, 9 passes deflected, 1 interception. This is a guy that's a playmaker on the defensive side of the ball, and do not be surprised if he starts putting some pressure and makes us start thinking maybe Keyshaun Elliott can be the Chicago Bears linebacker of the future. And we got that at round 5, so we'll see what happens there. But with that said, I said it at the beginning of the show, I want to talk about some defensive linemen, free agents that are available out there for the Chicago Bears, and we got to take a look at them, right? Like the Bears, we know that they did not address the defensive line in the way that we thought that they would. They continue to create space with restructuring contracts. There's a number of guys that are out there that could be there, right? So with that said, Joey Bosa is the number one guy out there that you have to talk about. He's not going back to the Buffalo Bills apparently as well. The Bears have a need for a pass rusher. And when you look at Joey Bosa, I'm not saying he's perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but this is a guy that's still a very productive veteran that is still putting up numbers and still able to help teams out. So I think if you bring him in, and if you don't want to just trust Austin Booker and Dayo Odeyingbo, you want to bring in somebody who's kind of more of a proven thing. Yeah, he's a little bit on the older side. He was born in 1995. Take that for what you will. But this guy still had a 5-sack season last year, right? Still 5 fumbles forced, tied for number 1 in the NFL in that area, right? So this is a guy that is still very, very productive. He's not where he was when he was getting 11.5, 10.5, 12.5 sacks, but still a guy that can come in and produce. And he played 15 games last year for that Buffalo Bills team. So with him not likely to return there, listen, I wouldn't be mad at taking a shot at Joey Bosa. You go through training camp, and hey, if Joey Bosa does not, bring you what you think you need or wanted, or if you do feel more confident about Austin Booker or anybody else, I think you can look at that and say, all right, cool. We don't have to keep Joey Bosa around, but he probably would want guaranteed money anyway. I'm just not mad at the potential of bringing in Joey Bosa. I think he's somebody that can help bolster. He doesn't completely change the outlook of the Chicago Bears defensive line, but he does help bolster that defensive line, and that's really what you're looking for at this point in time. The other guy, the old vet, that's Calais Campbell. I brought this guy up before. He played, so much of his career with Arizona. He went back to Arizona after, being in Atlanta, Baltimore, and Miami over the course of a couple of years. But he came back to Arizona, where his career started at. He's a free agent right now. This guy that still had 6.5 sacks last year, playing at the defensive tackle position. Would he be a starter? I don't know. Hell, Grady Jarrett didn't play really well for us at all last season. But Calais Campbell, I wouldn't hate. Again, at this point, the signings that I'm looking for are cost-effective veterans that can still contribute while not needing to take big long-term money from you. So even though that he was born the same year I was in 1986, which is crazy, he's 3 months older than me though. The shout out to the 40 Club. This is a guy that's still been very productive in the size and the experience that he has. The Bears have brought in old veterans before that are long in the tooth. We did that with I can't remember the tight end's name. We did that with a few years ago. That's definitely a guy that you can take a look at. I brought up Joey Bosa. I want to bring somebody else up who came from that Buffalo Bills team. That's AJ Epenesa, I believe is how you pronounce it. This is a guy that, he has some injury concerns, and you can't overlook that. But when you look at the course of his NFL career, he's never had a season where he's missed more than 3 games. And that was his first 2 years in the league. Last year, he missed 1 game. He played 16. The season before that, he played all 17 games. This is a guy that has had 6.5 sack seasons in 2022 and 23, a 6-sack season in 2024, only 2.5 sacks last year. He is from the area in Glen Carbon, Illinois as well. And with him being a free agent out there, I wouldn't mind taking a look at him. He had 2 interceptions last year as well, one fumble recovery, But, again, at this point, cost-effective vets that can come in, bring some depth and some much-needed edge to your team and ability to get to the quarterback. This is one of the younger guys that's on here right now. So, when he had a 1-year deal with the Cleveland Browns, that was rescinded due to physical, so he is still on the open market. If the Bears and the medical staff are more comfortable with his physicals, maybe he could come over to Chicago. We'll see, right? So it all comes down to the medicals for him. But AJ Epenesa is another guy that I would not be mad at all for the Chicago Bears. Next up, DJ Reader. Now, this is another guy that I think you got to look at. He's a veteran for that defensive tackle spot. He got some interest from the New York Giants before they traded for Dexter Lawrence. That's not there anymore. I do think he's not going to provide as many sacks, right? He did play all 17 games last season for the Detroit Lions. He had 28 tackles in that time. So I do think that you're bringing in somebody who would be a high-level producer for you, but not a guy that really, again, none of these guys are completely changing the outlook of the Chicago Bears defensive line. You're just adding in guys that can definitely help bring something that we're missing to this team and try to figure out if they can help this team, have a little bit more of a consistent pass rush. And I do think that he can do that potentially for the Chicago Bears team. We just got to see what the Bears are going to do with it, right? Are they willing to spend the money to bring in guys like that? Another guy, Haason Reddick, who played with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. This is another veteran guy, 2.5 sacks last year, 1 forced fumble as well. Look at the course of his career. He's only 2 seasons removed from an 11-sack season. Now, he played 10 games for the New York Jets in 2024, where he only had 1 sack. He played 13 games last year for the Buccaneers, where he had 2.5 sacks. But if there's any chance of him bringing 5-6 sacks to this team, I do think that he's definitely a guy that can help out this Bears team because of how much we need a little bit of extra emphasis and oomph on that edge position. So again, a guy that I'm not going to necessarily say is amazing for the Chicago Bears, right? None of these guys are. I want to be clear here. I wish I could try to sell you guys on saying, hey, this is the guy that's going to change everything for the Chicago Bears. I don't have that because those options aren't here at this point in free agency. At this point in free agency, what you're looking for is guys that can come in and help strengthen up potentially where some of your weaknesses are, but they're not going to make or break your team. And that goes financially as well, which the Chicago Bears are right up against it financially. So I think that that's something that you have to look at as well with that, and we'll see what you can bring there. The other guy that the Chicago Bears can bring in as a veteran option is Cameron Jordan. Now, this is a guy that did have 10.5 sacks last year. Another veteran who was born in 1989. He's been in the league since 2011. All those seasons with the New Orleans Saints, so he'd be familiar with Dennis Allen. He had 10.5 sacks last year, and I don't want to overlook that. He played all 17 games and had 10.5 sacks last year, 2 forced fumbles in that as well, and a fumble recovery. Again, as a back end of the bench veteran, I don't think you can do a lot wrong with that. And again, it's a low-risk, high-reward potential option here for the Chicago Bears, and I like his name a whole lot. And then the last name on this list is a name that I feel like I've talked about each of the last 2 off seasons. That's Jadeveon Clowney. Now, Bears fans always get mixed with this mix of hate and love for him. Could he actually help this team? I think that he could, but I think that the role that you put him in is going to have to be very particular and specific in how you use him at this point of his career. So to come in, breathe support, this guy did have 8.5 sacks last year. So it's not like he didn't have that. He had 8.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble as well. So that's a guy that I would be willing to bet on their ability to come in here and add some support. That's what these signings are about at this point, support. He played 13 games for the Cowboys, had those 8.5 sacks. He had 5.5 sacks last year, playing 14 games with the Carolina Panthers in 2024. So I think that this is another guy that can very well help the Chicago Bears. So that's my list. Let me know what you guys think on it down below. What veterans do you think can come in and help this team still with their pass rush specifically? The Chicago Bears are building, and they're building something and hoping that you get something different on the defense. And the scheme part of it is going to be very fun to see with the Chicago Bears this year. But I want to hear from you guys down below. How do you feel about the Bears? And do you feel like they need to sign a veteran pass rush option for the team before the season starts and training camp gets started? Or do you think the Bears are fine and they can roll with what they have? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. You can follow us at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.